Welcome to the video. If you're here, that means you're interested in conflict resolution, specifically how the Bible encourages us to resolve conflict through successful negotiations. One of my favorite acronyms for successful negotiation when it comes to conflict resolution is PAUSE. P-A-U-S-E. In this video, I want to break down that acronym, give you the scriptural basis for it, and hopefully help you to have successful negotiation. Now, P stands for prepare. What that means is you want to prepare before you go into negotiation. And the first thing you want to ask in preparation is, how can God be glorified through this negotiation or through this conflict resolution? In what way is God wanting to be glorified, or how can you glorify God in this negotiation? And one way to do that is by reviewing your own heart. You know, Jesus said in the book of Matthew, to not focus on the plank or the speck in your brother's eye, but first to consider the plank in your own eye. So as you prepare for successful negotiation, what you want to do is review your heart. You want to review your heart to make sure there's nothing in your proverbial eye that's causing you to see the situation in a different light, or in a light that may not be accurate. Because sometimes we can have things in our heart that cause us to see the situation different than what was intended, or hear something different than what was intended, or see the situation differently. So you want to prepare. And this could also mean writing down what you would like to say. It's very helpful to write down what you would like to say or what you would like to address, so that you stay on task, A, and B, so that you don't stumble over your words if you're the type of person that gets nervous when it comes to conflict resolution. So moving on to A. A stands for, you want to affirm the relationship. This is extremely important because I want you to understand, and both parties should understand, the conflict shouldn't have to cost the relationship. Every conflict doesn't need to cost the relationship. So when you go into conflict resolution, one of the things you want to do up front after you prepare is to affirm the relationship. You want to be able to go into the conflict resolution process and say, hey, we still may not come out of this process in agreement, but I want you to know that I still love you, or I still care about you. You're still my brother, you're still my sister. You can have unsuccessful conflict resolution and still be in a relationship with someone. So the conflict doesn't have to cost the relationship. That being said, you also want to make sure that you affirm love and respect for the person. And you can do that by asking the person, when are they available to meet? And not sort of bum rushing someone saying, I need to talk to you immediately, because that sort of exerts force over the person and doesn't really show respect for the person. So you want to be able to ask, when are you available to meet, or are you available to talk about this subject? And make sure the person is able to decide, hey, I'm ready to have this negotiation. Because if you drag someone into negotiations, you're not really having uh, cooperative negotiation. It's sort of it's a fight basically at that point. So you want to, hey, are you available for negotiation? The U in our acronym stands for understanding interests. And so this could be a whole video within and of itself, which is understanding that conflicts have three parts to it: the interest, the position, and then the issue. So the interest is what you hope to accomplish in the end. The position is how you imagine getting there. And then the issue could be some hurdle that you face along the way. What I find in conflict resolution most of the time is that people have similar interests. They want to arrive at the same place. However, how they imagine getting there is what differs. So both the husband and wife would like to have a romantic evening, as an example. They want to grow in intimacy. However, how they imagine getting there may be different. The husband may be more spontaneous, the wife may be more of a planner. And so they may not be able to align when it comes to what night is date night, right? So that's where you want to be flexible on your position as you go into negotiation. So finding out, understanding what the common interests are will help you to arrive at a place of commonality, cooperation, where you can have successful negotiations. Next, we have the S, and that stands for search for creative solutions. The biggest recommendation I can give for searching for creative solutions is to take it in a two-part process. when you go into negotiation, you don't necessarily have to arrive at a conclusion at that moment. You may want to go through a brainstorm process first, right? So if you're having a conflict with someone and you're going to negotiation, you may just have a session where you just come up with a bunch of ideas, not judging anyone's idea, not saying what's stupid or what makes sense, or judging other person's idea, like I said, but sort of just throwing it all out there, waiting then maybe for the next day, or maybe if an hour needs to go by, you need to have another session or whatever, to then come back and evaluate um, all the ideas. So you want to do in a two-part process, throwing out all the ideas, then coming back and looking at the ideas later. But the idea here is to get all the creative solutions out on the table so that you and the other person can see that there's more than one way to resolve uh, pretty much every conflict. Okay. The last letter in pause is E, and that stands for evaluate options objectively and reasonably. So this is primarily when you go back to that brainstorming session, you want to be able to focus on being objective and reasonable. So what's reasonable for us to accomplish? Are these options reasonable based on our finances, based on our time, whatever limitations help um inform what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. Evaluating things objectively, what you want to do is try to limit the emotional response to what you think the outcome should be. You want to separate your emotions from the process, and primarily that happens by understanding that the relationship is more valuable, or the teamwork is more valuable than this particular outcome. That's hard to do, especially when emotions are high. So that beginning phase of preparing by taking space and taking a break and thinking through things is extremely important in order to come back at the end objectively. So here's some tips for evaluating objectively. You want to try to see things from the other person's perspective. You want to listen carefully to their suggestions. You want to ask clarifying questions, because sometimes when people give ideas, you may not understand completely what they intend to share. So you want to ask good follow-up clarifying questions. You want to show respect to that person's interests, as we mentioned previously, and then you want to ask for feedback for your suggestions. And some of these things, these tips help us to detach our emotions from our ideas and get real feedback and be open to other options. So there you have it. The acronym PAUSE, PAUSE, will help you in the road to having successful negotiations. If you have any questions or concerns, share it in the comment below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe and like for more.